Hello, boys and girls. Welcome back for our Friday science video where we're going to add on to what we talked about on Wednesday. So if you remember, on Wednesday, we talked about the life cycle of a butterfly. We talked about the life cycle of a frog, and we even played a couple videos so we could talk about that. But the main point and our essential question that we're talking about this unit is, how do babies look different from their parents? And what are the stages or the parts in their life cycle? And remember, a life cycle can be broken down into many stages. It might be 3 stages, it might be 50 stages. It all depends on the lifespan of the animal or the person, and how you decide to break it up that way. So just like I promised, on Wednesday we talked about animals, and today we're going to talk about us, which, remember, we are technically animals. We are mammals because we have live young and we have hair or fur, and we also produce milk for our young. So today we're going to talk about that and how we change, and whether or not we look like our parents or if you look like your parents. So let's dive into our reading in our textbook, and when we're finished, we're going to talk about an activity that you can do at home that relates to us and what you look like and whether or not you look like your parents. So, how do people grow and change? So remember, on Wednesday we talked about animals. Today we're talking about us, humans. Just like plants and animals, people grow and change. Humans grow from babies into adults in stages. We learn to do more for ourselves at each stage. So remember, you could create a life cycle right now from birth, when you were a baby, all the way till 7 or however old you are now. And some people will wait until they get really, really old and then they end up dying. So you can break it off into different stages. This one looks like from a toddler to an adult, because I don't see an infant, I don't see a baby over here. But when we think about how we change from babies to now to when you become a teenager or an adult, we're constantly changing. And so if you only think about from when you were born, when you were a baby, up until you're 8, like you are right now. So you have an 8-year life cycle, or the stages that you can look at right now. So if you think about when you were a baby, when you just came back from the hospital, your mom and your dad had to hold you, they had to feed you, they had to change your diapers. You couldn't do anything by yourself because you were so tiny. As you got a little bit older, you learned to crawl. So you started moving around by yourself. Then you started to walk. And then you started to talk. And then you started doing more things for yourself. You started feeding yourself. Maybe you can dress yourself and pick out your clothes for school. You can pack up your backpack. Maybe you know how to ride your bike. So these things that you can do right now, you couldn't do when you were a baby. But even though you can do more things now by yourself and you're a little bit more independent, you still need your parents' help for some things, or you're not quite old enough to do it by yourself yet. So even if you're 8 right now, you may be able to pick out what snack you want, but you may not be able to cook dinner on the stove for your family yet. Or maybe you can put your clothes away, but maybe you're not doing the laundry all by yourself yet. And we're definitely not old enough to drive, and you're not old enough to vote yet. So those are things that will come in the later stages of your life, in the later parts of your life cycle. So when we think about all those different things that you couldn't do before, but you can do now, that's because our body is changing and our brain is developing, and things are changing in ourselves every single day. So, all adult humans can reproduce. When a living thing reproduces, it creates offspring. A living thing that has reproduced is a parent. So, when we hear that word reproduce, that just means to have a baby. So, it's saying, if you're an adult and your body is ready to have a baby, then you can reproduce and you create offspring. So offspring is just another word for baby or a child. So if you have an offspring, then you are a parent. So Miss Owen is an offspring to her mom because my mom had me, so she is a parent. You are an offspring to your mom because you are the baby. So an offspring is just another word for a baby. As we grow, our bodies change. We may get new characteristics as we get older. A characteristic is a physical feature. So, just like we talk about character traits of a person in a story, we also have characteristics that are physical features. So, how do you look? Look at your hair, look at your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your whole body. We have physical features or characteristics, the way that we look. So we don't look the same. When we were a baby and we first came home from the hospital, we don't look like that anymore. Our physical features, our characteristics are always changing. So how you look right now at 5 or 8 or 12 years old, you're going to look different in a few years because your characteristics, your physical features are always changing. And it's really cool because you're an offspring or a child of your parent, a lot of times you look like your mom, or you could look like your dad, or you could look like both of them because their physical features, how your mom looks and how your dad looks, those kind of mix together and then they have you. So maybe you look like you have your mom's hair, or you have your dad's eyes, or you have the same nose, or something like that. A parent passes on those characteristics, those physical features of how we look to the baby. So if we look at a human life stage, we can see that the toddler, she's little, she might be 2 here, 2 or 3. She is exploring the world. So she probably learned how to walk a year or so ago. She's seeing how everything works. Her brain is still developing. And then you have young children can do some things for themselves, like getting dressed. So she might be 4 or 5. So when she was little and a toddler, her mom probably picked out her dress for her. But now, as she's going through her life cycle, she's getting more independent. She can do more things for herself. So now she puts on her own clothes. Then she gets a little bit older. She still looks the same, but her characteristics have changed. She's gotten older. So she's a teenager right here. So she still kind of looks like she did when she's a kid, and she's starting to look a little bit older too. And then finally, she grows and changes even more. And it says she's able to take care of herself and her own children. So as she's an adult and she decided to have a baby, now she has offspring. She has a child, and that little boy will have his own life cycle too. So it's really cool that we talk about the life cycle happens over and over and over again. That's what happens to people too. So if we turn the page, it says, how are parents and offspring alike? All living things can pass characteristics on to their offspring. This is why parents and their offspring may have similarities. A similarity is a shared characteristic. So a shared characteristic, something that's similar, something that looks the same. You might have the same kind of hair as your mom. Maybe your hair is curly and your mom's hair is curly. Maybe you both have blue eyes. Maybe you both have a deep skin tone. So some things you are the same as your mom or your dad or both. But as we grow, our bodies change and we may develop differences or characteristics that make us different from other people. So you might not have the same ears as your mom or dad, or as you get older, you may get really, really tall and you get even taller than your mom and dad. So as we grow and our bodies change, you can be similar. You can have similarities where you do look like your parents, or you can have some differences where you don't look like your parents anymore. Maybe you don't have the same characteristics. So those are some things to think about when we talk about parents and their offspring and their children. And if you look at this page, you can see that every child looks a little bit different. They have different skin tones, they have different shapes of their eyes, they have different hair color and texture, they're wearing different clothes, some are short, some are tall. So it really just depends. Everybody is unique and they have their own characteristic, those physical features of what we look like. Sometimes we do not develop a characteristic until we are older. Babies are sometimes born with blue eyes. Their eye color may change as they get older. As children grow, they get taller. They may get taller than their parents. So it's really, really crazy how our bodies and our characteristics change all the time, because I knew a baby one time when she was born, her hair was black, just like her mom's. And then all of her hair fell out and it came out blonde, just like her dad. So it's so crazy how our body is constantly changing and we might look like our mom and dad. And there might be some things about us that don't look like our mom and dad. So our question, just our comprehension check, why do parents and children sometimes look alike? Why do they look alike sometimes? So remember, parents and children or offspring look alike because they're passing their traits or their characteristics down to their children. So remember, some of those traits might show up later because you haven't finished growing yet. So if you look in the mirror and your hair or your height, if you're not as tall as your mom and dad, that's okay. It might change. It might stay the same. You could be taller than your mom and dad when you're 15 or 16. So your body is always changing, and you are still at the beginning of your life cycle. So you still have a long way to go before you change into a teenager and an adult, and as you get older and older throughout your life cycle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this picture right here, and I'm actually going to screen grab it so that I can write on it. And that way we can do a quick activity that you can do at home too. All right, so when we talk about this picture, the question says, how does this child look like his parent? So we have a son and a father, and we're going to talk about how they're the same, they have similarities, and they have differences, how they don't look the same, how they're different. And so one way that we do this, we can do this in reading, we can do it in science, social studies, math, it doesn't matter. But remember those two circles that we kind of squish together so that we can compare and contrast? Do you remember what that's called, boys and girls? Remember these two circles and they cross in the middle? This is our Venn diagram. And so I created one for our parent and our offspring, because remember, the parent is the mom or the dad and the offspring is the child. So I'm going to write, let's do blue this time. So remember, offspring is just another word for a child or a baby. So we are going to compare these two people, the father and the son. So the first thing that we want to do when we look at a picture like this and we're using a Venn diagram, remember the Venn diagram has two different circles. So we have one circle for the parent and we have one circle for the offspring. So when we look at that, we're going to say this is our parent. So in the picture, it's the dad. So I'm just going to write dad. So this is his circle. This on the left side is the dad's circle. Hopefully it will catch up. It's going a little bit slow. Okay, and then the circle on the right is going to be the boy. And I don't know his name, so I'm just going to write boy on the right side of the circle. So when we think about this and we look at the two different circles, we have to remember this circle over here is the dad's, and this circle over here is the boy. When we look at the middle part of the circle, see how both of their circles kind of squish together? This circle is where they are the same. So we want to put all the differences on the dad's side, and we want to put all the boys' differences on the boys' side. In the middle, that's how they're going to look the same. So we want to think about that when we are creating our Venn diagram. We want to think about that when we're comparing. So if I go back to the picture of the boy and the dad, let's look at the dad first. So when I look at, if we start from the top and we go to the bottom, I see he has some brown hair, but so does the little boy. Remember, we have to pick out the differences. He has straight hair, but so does the little boy. So we don't want to put that on the dad's side. I see that he's got some little lines next to his eyes. When he smiles, he's got 3 little lines next to his eyes. Those are called crow's feet. So the dad has crow's feet, but I don't see the son having any crow's feet. So maybe we could put that on his side. Maybe we can write that the dad has crow's feet when he smiles because the little boy does not. So the dad has crow's feet and the little boy does not. So let's go back to the picture. Let's look at the skin tone. Well, his skin looks a little bit lighter to me than the son's. The son has a little bit deeper of a skin tone, so maybe their skin tone's a little bit different. So maybe we can write that. So the dad has a lighter skin, so we can put lighter skin. Because remember, we're only talking about the dad. If the dad and the boy have the same characteristic, we have to put it in the middle. And right now we're just working on the left side of the screen. So if we go back to our picture, what else do we see? If we look at his smile. So another thing that I see too is when the dad smiles, he has a little dimple where it kind of goes in a little bit. So if I kind of circle it, you can kind of see where there's a little dimple. He's got one on the side and right next to his mouth, but the little boy does not have one. So maybe we can go back and we can say that the dad has a dimple, a little hole when he smiles. So if we look at the dad's characteristic, he has crow's feet near his eyes. He has lighter skin than his son, and he has a dimple when he smiles. So now we finished the left side of our Venn diagram. We want to look at the right side, the boy. So if we go back to the picture and we only look at the little boy, let's look at him. So we said the dad and the son have very, very similar hair. They're cut differently, but those might be some good similarities to put in the center of our Venn diagram. So I'm going to leave the hair alone. And I see that the little boy, if we look at their eyes, they both have brown eyes too. So that might be a good similarity. So if we look at, maybe if we look at their noses, so if you see and we look at their noses a little bit, the dad kind of has a little bump in his nose, but the little boy does not. His is very smooth and pointy. It's a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go to the boy's side and write that he has a straight nose because the dad has a little bump at the top. So I'll just put straight nose. Okay, so he has a straight nose. Let's go back to the picture. Okay, so he has a straight nose. Let's look at his smile. Remember we said he doesn't have a dimple. So let's look at his, maybe look at his skin tone. Remember we talked about the dad had a light skin tone and the little boys had more of a rich, deeper skin tone. So since I have lighter skin on the right side, I'm going to write deeper skin on the right side since we have light on the left. Okay, so we need one more characteristic of the little boy. And I think if we look at his mouth, we'll kind of be able to see, and like we said, how some traits change as we get a little bit older. Sometimes our teeth may not be very straight and we have to get braces. And as we get older, we might lose some of our baby teeth and grow into our teeth. So it looks like the little boy's teeth are a little bit more crooked than his dad's. So we might want to put that the little boy has some crooked teeth. They're not as straight as his dad's. So crooked teeth. Okay, now in the middle, what's supposed to go in the middle? Is it if they're different or the same? They're the same. So we already picked out a couple from this picture. What did we say about their hair that's the same? What color is their hair? Brown. And is it curly or straight? It is straight. So because the dad and the boy both have straight brown hair, that is a similarity. The dad passed that trait onto the son. So I'm going to put straight brown hair. So we have straight brown hair. That is a similarity. That's how the dad and the son are the same. So if we look at one more thing, I noticed something about their eyes. What do we notice about their eyes? The shape of their eyes might be different because we talked about how dad had those crow's feet. But what's different or what's the same about the color of their eyes? They are both brown. So both the son and the father have brown eyes. That is a similarity that they have. So when we look at our Venn diagram, we use this to compare two different things. So we looked at the traits that the dad had, and we also looked at the physical traits or the characteristics that the boy had. And we determined that the dad looked different than the little boy because they're at two different stages of their life cycle. But the dad, because he's the parent, passed on some physical features or characteristics to his son. And that is why the little boy looks like his dad. So, something that you can do at home that I think would be really fun would be if you did your own. So I'm going to pretend that this is my piece of notebook paper that I have at my house, and I'm going to draw my Venn diagram. So remember, when you're making a Venn diagram, you want to make two circles. They don't have to be perfect circles. But here's my two circles that I'm going to make for my Venn diagram at home. What I want you to do is I want you to take a mirror, a handheld mirror, or you can go to your bathroom mirror and look at your characteristics, your physical features, what you look like. Look at your ears, look at your eyes, look at the shape and the color, look at your hair, look at the color. Is it curly? Is it straight? Is it long? Is it short? Look at your skin tone. Is it really light? Is it really deep? Is it, do you have different colors in your skin? It doesn't matter. Whatever you see, look at your nose, your mouth, your hands, your height. Are you tall, short? And I want you to look, and right on the left side of your screen, you can put, I'll just put me, but you can put your name right there. And what I want you to do at home is to go and find somebody else to put on the right side. So you might put your mom or your dad or your brother or sister. You can just write their name. And remember, when we're doing our Venn diagram, we are comparing. So the left side is going to be only you, how you look unique, how you do not look like your mom or your dad or your brother or sister. And then on the right side, that's going to be your parent or your brother or your sister, and you can compare your characteristics. Now remember, you have the middle piece where you're going to have to find something that's the same. So maybe you and your mom have the same hair, or maybe you and your brother have the same shape of nose, or maybe you and your dad have the same skin tone. So they're all going to be different, and you can make as many Venn diagrams as you want. You could make one for each person in your house and compare them and see how different you really are. So that could be a good activity for you to do at home, and it's super, super easy. Just make sure you have enough space for you to write. And another thing that you can do as a bonus activity would be for you to go and look at some pictures that you have in a scrapbook. Ask your parents to look at your baby pictures and compare what you used to look like when you just came home from the hospital and what you look like right now. or if you're 10 right now, you can go back and look and see what you look like when you were 4. And you'll see that you look kind of the same, but older and a little bit different. And you can describe and discuss your characteristics and talk about how some of them are the same and how some of them might be different. Another fun thing that you can do at home, if you have a lot of pictures laying around, is ask your mom and dad to see their baby pictures and when they were a kid. Because remember, they have their own life cycle, just like you have your own life cycle. So, boys and girls, if you get a chance to make a Venn diagram of your family and send me pictures or whatever you decide to do of your virtual learning, make sure you tag White Station's Facebook page. If you decide to compare your physical characteristics with your family members, and I will see you next week for another unit in our science lesson. Bye, everybody.